diplomats are nomads. Are nomads by profession. We move around the world. We don't have a yurt. We have a container. But the philosophy is the same, And I think it's very useful because the nomadic mentality teaches you that you are not allowed to lose any second of your life. I want to have more Italian university in Kazakhstan, following this idea that Kazakhstan is a hub also of knowledge hub. So if you want to go east, west, and west, east, you need to cross Kazakhstan. You are a landlocked country, but you are a very open-minded people. If Kazakhstan want to solve a problem, they can do it. We wanted to promote Italian culture in order to promote Kazakhstan, or to promote Kazakhstan in order to maximize the support to Italian culture. In that case, it was music. The expectations were not as interesting and great as the results. So the results, overwhelmed them in the expectations. That's an experience that can be linked also to the promotion of Kazakhstan as a touristic welcoming country.
Your Excellency, welcome to the first episode of so-called Travel Talks by Kazakh Tourism. And we had this idea for a very long time, and you are the first guest, and I'm really honored to host you here today.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm particularly honored to be here as the first guest. Thanks.
Thank you. For the purpose of this interview, I have to call you by your first name, if you don't mind. And since
I think
we've become good friends, Marco, thanks once again for coming and joining. This is not a formal interview. It's just a talk, just a discussion about the tourism transit potential of Kazakhstan.
It's a privilege for a diplomat being in an informal context, so thank you very much again.
Thank you. But just to throw in the first question to kind of stir up the discussion will be about your expectations when you were first appointed to be ambassador for Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. What were the images that kind of were evoked in your head?
Look, I didn't know much about Kazakhstan, and that was my fortune, because I'm an extremely curious person, and I want to discover, I want to explore, and the expectation was a great surprise. I love surprises, and Kazakhstan was for me and for my family a great surprise, something to discover. I knew that I would find a great, glorious hospitality that is typical of your people, and I found it. And step by step, I got immersed into this culture.
Right.
My idea was starting from being accepted, and then starting creating relations which would be eventually useful to promote my country and to promote a friendship between our peoples.
Right. I remember our first meeting. You invited me to Kazakh gourmet restaurant, and it's not a usual case when ambassadors of foreign countries, they usually probably invite to their own cuisine if it is present in a certain city, but such a pleasure it was to come and experience the yurt hospitality, because in that restaurant, remember, we were sitting around the table on the ground, just like Kazakhs would do back in the day. It was extremely great. Yeah.
Well, the idea I wanted to create the idea and shape the idea that diplomats are nomads. Are nomads by profession.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that's right. They keep traveling and assigned to the
We move around the world. We don't have a yurt. We have a container. But the philosophy is the same, And I think it's very useful because the nomadic mentality teaches you that you are not allowed to lose any second of your life. Because, in some days you have to pack and go away, in some years. So I came here with the idea that every single day would be useful for me to learn something.
Right.
I think it's the problem that some diplomats have sometimes is that you have a countdown in your mind. So you land a country and you start thinking that you have to stay only 4 years. So I don't know if I want to do that. I have not much time. I came here with the idea to stay forever. I knew that it would not be possible, but
of course,
the attitude was, I'm here to stay forever.
Wow. But as a nomad, as you put it very right, I think, right into the point, as a nomad, were you kind of prepared for certain hardships when it comes to exploring new destination, and was actually the suffix in the name of the country Stan kind of probably bringing different images? Or?
No, there was different image in Italy, but I think that one of the main features of a diplomat is not following, the stereotypes. Because if you fall prey to stereotypes, your entire staying in the country can be, biased.
Right.
So I try to resist to any stereotype. And they actually came here a couple of months after, the crisis in Afghanistan, and it was,
That's right.
I was very, curious about how Central Asia would face this new geopolitical rebalance, in the region. But it was great. Again, if we are able not to fall prey to stereotypes, life is full of surprises, and Kazakhstan is a country full of surprises.
That's right. And in fact, it's part of our marketing strategy to bring something new on the table, even with the suffix "stan." I know some countries, there's still some proponents.
TravelStan.
Exactly. This is something I wanted to bring, because the campaign really was well received in the European market. We run it on Euronews, Eurosport channels. We even got some accolades, some award for this campaign. And I think that's the idea we should bring to the world, especially to the West, to Europe, where on the grassroots levels, people don't know much about the region, about Kazakhstan or any other stans in the region. I think we should somehow try to romanticize probably that suffix.
That's a fortune. That's a fortune, because there is a great portion of tourists around the world which want to discover something new on vacation. So the fact that Kazakhstan is not as much known as some other countries offers a great potential of growth in terms of tourism. And I think that TravelStan is a very good idea, because traveling is not simply going on vacation. So the concept of the traveler is much deeper than the concept of the tourist.
Discovering more.
Exactly.
And seeing the reality, probably, the authenticity.
Exactly. And if you go back in history, people who came here, they were travelers. They were not tourists. And the enrichment, the mutual enrichment that along the Silk Way, we had the opportunity, to experience our cultures, came up from the concept of traveler, which is connected to the concept of hospitality, which is connected to the concept of sharing something, not simply visiting, but sharing, absorbing something different from your culture.
Right. I can't help but mentioning Marco Polo, because I think this was the early days traveler, not
exactly.
tourist.
And this year we are celebrating 700 years of Marco Polo's death. So it's an important anniversary for us, because traveling is something which made Italy the country that actually is.
Right. And going back into history, back in the day, Venice was an important port on the Silk Road. And when people would think of classical Silk Road, something like, again, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Iran, China would pop up in their minds. But I think Silk Road was stretched over for thousands of miles, reaching the shores of Adriatic and Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah. You know that there is a great portion of Italians who are, they are unstoppable. They went east, they went west. They couldn't stand still. They wanted to discover. And Venice was one of those poles of discovery, poles of, trade as well.
Right.
They created a sort of diplomacy. The Venice diplomacy was one of the most efficient in that time.
Venice diplomacy.
Exactly.
In fact, and I know from your profile that you've been involved in digital diplomacy and economical diplomacy and all sorts of diplomacy. But I think this is time now, with 1.4 billion people crossing international borders annually. There is travel diplomacy nowadays, when people, and I think it's quite an interesting point when even when it comes to investment, not just traveling or going on vacation. Even investor first comes as a traveler into a country, before making decision to invest, he comes and stays. He tastes local food to get the sense of the place.
Absolutely.
He meets local people to see if the labor market
Absolutely.
is essential and sufficient for this.
Yeah.
So I think everything pretty much nowadays starts with traveling and discovering the destination.
Let me summarize the very important concept that you have mentioned. The key word is connectivity. So the point is being connected, which is different from being globalized. Mm-hmm. So sometimes during the centuries, the world was more globalized or less globalized, increasing the globalization, decreasing globalization. But the key point is not globalization as itself. The key point is connectivity. And you have some million WhatsApp per second in the world. And when I got my degree in law in 1996, Google did not exist. It's extremely difficult for me now to explain when I go to universities that Google did not exist. And in 2000, when I entered diplomacy, internet has 350 million users. Now we're 5 billion.
5 billion.
So I don't know if we are more or less globalized than in the past, but for sure we are more connected. Exactly. And that connection is an opportunity for business, for people-to-people connectivity, because we need people-to-people connectivity. Students, Italian embassy is issuing 2,000 student visas per year.
In Kazakhstan.
Exactly. That's what I insisted a lot, because students, people-to-people connectivity of students, they are more inclined to be, ambassadors of Italy, quote unquote, in Kazakhstan. So I want to have more students studying in Italy. I want to have more Italian university in Kazakhstan, following this idea that Kazakhstan is a hub, also of knowledge hub.
Right. Would you say that Kazakhstan is a gateway into Central Asia, essentially?
It's a crossroad. It's not only a gateway to Central Asia, but there's no middle corridor without Kazakhstan. So if you want to go east, west, and west, east, you need to cross Kazakhstan. And if you wanted to go north, south, and south, north in Central Asia, you need to cross Kazakhstan.
That's a great point, especially in light of the new so-called middle corridor connecting nowadays European continent with Southeast Asia, China, so to speak. And
so Kazakhstan is in the middle of the middle corridor.
In the center of the middle corridor.
In the very center, in the middle, between two different hemispheres. And it's not a small country, it's a huge country, territorially speaking.
Exactly. So you can't go to Europe from Asia without crossing Kazakhstan. That's the point,
Ever since,
Right.
Ever since, people have traveled through Kazakhstan, and the traveling, the culture of Kazakhstan is made of the superpositions and contaminations, cultural contamination of thousands, millions of people who have crossed this country, leaving something and taking something of Kazakhstan with them.
Yeah. Would you say that the modern, or there is a renaissance of Silk Road nowadays with Kazakhstan kind of going back to its ancient promise of connecting civilizations, connecting continents, and forging new ties and trade and travel?
Yes. It's even, in my view, is even larger than the single project of Silk Road. That's one of the projects. But there is a great demand of knowing something new. There is a great demand in Europe of exploring the possibility to have new friendship, to have new relations. One of the first initiatives that I supported was the direct flight between Italy and Kazakhstan. I had been already appointed, but I was not here yet. But I started discussing in Italy with NEOS the possibility to make this bet, because we were in 2021 still getting out from the COVID,
That's right. Yeah, I remember that time.
Yeah.
We were closely working with the embassy at that time with NEOS to put with the Civil Aviation Authority to make that happen as as a charter flight first, and then it went into regular, and now I think the flights are full. And that helps us to see.
Was a warm bet. I mean, the expectations were not as interesting and great as the results. So the results, overwhelmed them in the expectations.
That's great. Yeah, I like when expectations not only met but actually exceeded.
Exceeded, and I think that it's a clear sign that there is a demand of from people. There is a demand of moving around, and people don't want to stop over. They want to travel directly, don't lose time. They don't want to spend too much time in airports or somewhere. And if you want to increase business, that Italy is the first market for export for Kazakh goods. So I wanted them to increase business, but it doesn't make much sense to insist on increasing business and not having direct flights. Because businessmen,
of course,
even more than tourists, they don't want to lose time. And the direct flight is the best way to reduce the time of traveling.
Right. And it would also help cargo, of course, and it would help not only trade, but people would come, because for years we had this kind of complex, to be honest, that we are landlocked. But now the mentality is slowly shifting into kind of we're landlocked, but we're landlinked as well. Back to your point of connectivity, and now that helps us a lot, because it's not only about air or maritime, especially when something could happen overnight with some sort of canal or ship that blocks the canal, but having trucks kind of crisscrossing the territory of a certain state. I think that's really important, along with cargo, and then turning that into multimodal kind of transportation.
That belongs to the concept of connectivity. And you are a landlocked country, but you are a very open-minded people. So I think that, the idea of having open to new possibility, to be on transformation, on transition towards, a new pattern of country is absolutely more important and more attractive than the fact that you're landlocked. Of course, if you talk about the transportation and goods and cargo, there are some issues that you have to win, but the point is having people who are open-minded. And I found a lot of people who are open-minded, and they want to change something, they want to create something new, which is the best promise that the Kazakhstan can make to the international partners. That's the point. I think that open-minded people are the hope to transform friendship or excellent relations, for example, with Italy, into a strategic partnership. Because we can't rely only on friendship. If we want to grow together, we need to transform that friendship into a strategic partnership. And you need open-minded people.
And open-mindedness comes from curiosity. I think to quote you, and not probably word to word, but would you agree that we
partially? I think that your advantage is that you have been faced to challenging, conditions over the history, which helped shape your mind in a very problem-solving way. You have a very problem-solving mind. If Kazakhstan want to solve a problem, they can do it.
I like this, yes.
and this cross of cultures that you have experienced over the centuries gave you this multidisciplinarity, this capacity, and the ability of finding different options in front of complex problems. Because the point today is creativity. Which is not only the artistic creativity. I believe that also diplomats should be creative. Creativity today is the capacity and the ability to find different options in front of complex problems. Because whatever the sector, whatever the industry, whatever the job, you will be faced to complex situations, complex, challenging
And the world is full of complex issues nowadays.
Correct.
I think creativity should play a key
Yes.
role. And I have to say, Marco, you're very creative because we've done quite a few projects together. And I remember bringing acclaimed Maestro Martire coming and playing inside Charyn Canyon on a nice white piano and making a viral video from this. I think that's one of the greatest projects.
Thanks to you. It was a good example of cooperation. It was 2022, 30 years of 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations.
Yes.
And we chose a 30 years old maestro. We asked him to create a new song dedicated to Kazakhstan, Larm. We asked him to play this song inside the Charyn Canyon, which is, one of the most beautiful natural scenarios of Kazakhstan. And the message that we wanted to send was that we wanted to promote Italian culture in order to promote Kazakhstan, or to promote Kazakhstan in order to maximize the support to Italian culture. In that case, it was music. In that case, was the idea to promote a young generation maestro. I think it was a success because it was based on the cooperation.
It was a great success. Both the video made in Charyn Canyon and the concert followed in Astana. It was a great success. I think we need more events like this. And thank you once again for making that happen. And another project I can't help but mentioning is La Bella Principessa. I think
Yes.
that was the highlight of this year and the relationships between
That
our
was another
countries.
example, linked to the possibility to help Kazakhstan increase tourism through promotion of Italian culture. I think I wanted, for 2024, I wanted something extraordinary. Because President Tokayev went to Italy after many years without a presidential visit to Italy. Some other institutional representatives came to Kazakhstan, our Minister of Foreign Affairs. I perceived that Italy and Kazakhstan deserved something extraordinary. And in order we thought of Leonardo, first because it's something extraordinary. That artwork,
Of course, the name itself, yes, speaks for.
That artwork has been exposed only 5 times in 500 years, and one of those times is Kazakhstan. So, and secondly, because Leonardo represents something which is the concept, the real epitome of modernity for us, which is not in Italy, not simply innovation, but modernity for us is tradition plus innovation. Leonardo was able to do what he did because it was rooted in the tradition of Italy. It was immersed into our culture, and being innovative without being immersed into tradition, it's a little bit dangerous.
Right. I think again, back to your previous point about the kind of intricate value and the kind of traits that Kazakh people have that is rooted into nomadism, turbulent history that shaped, as you said, our mentality, our open-mindedness. And returning to the point of Leonardo da Vinci, I think nowadays being open-minded, being connected with your culture, this is something that Kazakhstan is trying to revive through its policy, to bringing back its values, to shape the national identity again. And I think the events like World Nomad Games or simply just smaller competition that are related, I think should help not only tourism, which would attract people from overseas, but would help us continue shaping our mentality, shaping our problem-solving skills that would in turn help us attract more investment and more people.
Absolutely. For me, it was more than a sport initiative. It was the World Nomadic Game was an experience. And I wanted to feel immersed, not just a spectator, but I spent a lot of time, in the arena. I spent a lot of time observing. I spent a lot of time talking with people inside there, athletes, but also people, because I didn't want to be a spectator. Nomadic Games were a great opportunity for me to get more aware of the values beyond the competition. And I learned something which is extremely interesting, particularly in this time of crisis, of conflict, that there is a great difference between the enemy and the adversary. So nomadic games there are some of those games are very tough,
Like Kokpar.
Yes, of course, or some other disciplines.
And all types of wrestling.
Wrestling, yeah.
Where Italy won gold in
female,
one of the female wrestling.
Yeah. But there is a basis of friendship. There is a basis of respect of the other one. There is a basis of respect for the rules. There is a difference between the one that you have in front of you or the team that you have in front of you. They are not enemies. They are adversary, right. Competitor, but not enemies. And this was very important for me to experience the difference, particularly in times of crisis and conflict, where the world tends to make a difference between the enemies and their friends, and it's important. And the other concept is the concept of hospitality, which is included into the nomadic heritage. Because we should refresh the concept of hospitality in Europe sometimes, because the guest is not your friends, the friend that you invite to your place for dinner. The guest is the one who knocks the door. And you don't know who she is. He or she is. You don't know him or her. But the value of that person is because he knocks your door, not because you know him in advance. That's very important. That's very interesting. That's an experience that can be linked also to the promotion of Kazakhstan as a touristic welcoming country.
It's very interesting you brought this because for years we've been struggling with this stereotype or the approach to hosting people. Whenever you're hosting someone, even back in the century, people would knock at your yurt's door because there were no hotels, simply. Or nowadays you're hosting someone as a friend, you're spreading table reach of delicacies, etc. You invite a person to stay overnight at your place. But the moment a person starts paying for this, we don't have the same kind of approach in serving people. Did you ever notice this in Kazakhstan? Because I know hospitality and hospitality industry, it's probably different.
It's different, yes. It's different because you have to be educated to the culture of service. It's different from the culture of hosting somebody at your place. The service, the culture of service comes from a long standing education, a long standing attitude towards the client or the customer.
Customer orientation. Yes.
Exactly. But whatever, it's the same with any industry, any sector. You mentioned the Principessa, La Bella Principessa. We organized an event connected to the exhibition dedicated to fashion, because it's known that she was a trendsetter. For 500 years ago in Milan, there was a very consolidated market of fashion. She was a designer as well. She wore beautiful dresses. Why I mention this? Because Milano Fashion Week is the peak of the iceberg of something which has 500 years of history. 500 years of professional artisans, designers, trade of textiles, and whatever. The same in the touristic industry. One of the delicate points of the nomadic culture is patient. Nomads and diplomats, we are not patient because we perceive that time is flying away and we have to go away. And we would like, to have everything overnight sometimes. Overnight, it's something which happens, in the video games. But in real life, you need to respect the time to build something, not only to, get something. Building requires more time than getting something, in the short time.
Right, and I think hospitality has been perhaps one of the oldest industries, and Italy is one of the examples how it was shaped through trade, through merchants, through art, and up until nowadays. I think Italy remains one of the most sought after destinations. But I think that there's also a negative flip side to popularity, which is over-tourism. And even in Kazakhstan, of course, we receive many times less tourists than European destinations. But in certain destinations here in the country outside of Astana, take Burabai, for instance, beautiful place. You go there, you just discover something new each time you go there. And nowadays, the place is suffering over tourism at its own kind of scale. What do you think? How should we face this? And
regulation.
Venice is probably doing something to demotivate even tourists, or Rome,
or to regulate more than demotivate it. I think that the key word is regulating. You need to regulate because it's something. It's an heritage. It's a beauty that you need to protect and preserve. You mentioned Burabai. Burabai, I mean, is a natural paradise, a natural landscape, and responsible tourism is something that also the public authorities, I mean, need to take care of. Regulation. I think the regulation probably. What I perceive is that one of the solutions where we are going towards a different concept of vacation. For example, I mean, of course, August in Italy is the most it's the most touristic month. We receive
August,
yes. But today, particularly foreign tourists are traveling and going on vacation, not necessarily in summertime. You can go and visit. You can push. You can orient, I mean, some tourism to Venice, for example, in October. Venice in October is fantastic. It's not the splendid sun, but there is a different atmosphere, some fog, which is very, very appealing in that city. So one of the point is orienting, I mean, the touristic floods.
Motivating people come in less touristic.
Exactly.
Kind of for shoulder season.
Exactly.
But limiting number, would that, do you think, help? Or imposing tourist tax, which actually is the case with
Venice. Probably the second option is more viable. It's difficult, I mean, to limit the number of people who wants to go. There are many people who have who go to Venice once in their lives. It would be very tough and difficult to me to limit the number, but probably to regulate this number and also to impose a tax, because Italy is a museum as itself, actually. Italy is a museum. You should pay some taxes when you get into Italy, because everywhere is beautiful. Everywhere is, is a fantastic, landscape that you are enjoying. And
can we say the same about Kazakhstan? Certain areas?
Well, certain areas, yes. Natural parks as themselves. I mean, I remember fantastic, days spent in Mangistau. I've been traveling quite a lot throughout Kazakhstan.
What's your top three?
Top three, one is Mangistau, actually.
Mangistau.
Yes, Mangistau is the lakes in Almaty and the mountains. And I'm very passionate about mountains. So the mountains in the Altai Mountains. Ursk-Kamenogorsk, it's, from there east. It's been some of my most beautiful experience of mountains in life. Very, very nice.
I like that area too.
Yeah.
Rieder and then Katon-Karagay, which is more south of Uсть-Kamenogorsk.
Because sometimes people search for something they don't usually have. So the real experience of nature is something that is very rare. The real experience of silence is something that in Italy is very, very difficult to have. The real experience of darkness. I took my kids to the canyon. We spent the night in the new hotel there. And we spent a couple of hours outside to look at the sky, because it's an experience to see the sky as you can see in the middle of the canyon.
A lot of people note the skies of Astana. Most of the time it's blue, the clouds and everything. And a hotelier, a former GM of one of the 5-star properties here, he said, this should be sold, You bring a couple of folding chairs, you bring a picnic table, you set it outside on a lawn, and there you are, watching the most clear skies in the world, or stargazing.
You need to market it. Because if you have the best resource, but you don't market that resource, it remains a resource, potential resource. Marketing is what connects a resource to profit, a resource to project. And one of the ingredients of marketing today is creativity. Because you need to think a little bit out of the box in order to propose to a tourist something which is not usual, which is not originary. And you need to propose in something which has a storytelling. You're selling something, you're offering something which is unique, which is an experience, which is unforgettable. It's not just looking at the sky, it's looking at the sky where you can see the best way possible the Milky Way, for example.
Or where the rocket with man was first set into skies, into space, actually.
For example. I have been there. I've been, yes, in front of Baikonur, because we went with the EU ambassadors, and thanks to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, we went to the Aral Sea. We had two beautiful stops. One was Baikonur, and we had the opportunity to visit from outside the drone. Mm-hmm. And the second step was the mausoleum of Korketata. Incredibly, in the middle of silence, in the middle of nature, where everything, pushes you to contemplate and to pray.
It's interesting that you brought up this particular monument or attraction, because going back to your point of creativity, Korketata was, according to the legend holds that he was trying to crack the secret of longevity or eternity. And then he realized, after searching for years and years, that actually, in order to remain eternal, you have to invest yourself into art, and only through art. And that's how he came up with the idea of kobus, actually, that art, and especially music, would help you. Exactly, creativity. And marketing and creativity, they have to go hand in hand now, especially with digital and everything. I know there is our counterpart of Kazakh tourism in Italy, which does probably a great job, since there is overtourism in certain destination. And I know you were also working towards having us connect on more professional level as organizations. What do you think? It's just the point that was bothering me many times. Both them and us, we work towards having and developing inbound flows, inbound tours, but should be destinations which are not competitors by any sense. Should they help each other to kind of exchange experience and share some tricks, probably?
For sure. Let me say that first, I promote an Italian company traveling in Italian airlines, which brings people to Italy. And by promoting the Italian company, which is my institutional role, I can partner with Kazakhstan promoting Kazakhstan. So if I had not an Italian airlines, it would be more complicated for me. But I have that company, and I insist, with Kazakhstan, that we should have more Italian passengers. Now, there are a lot of Kazakh going to Italy, Kazakh people, fine. But the potential is bringing more Italians to Kazakhstan. And in that meaning, tourism for us is an opportunity, not only in terms of travelers, but in terms of infrastructure. There is a great potential in Kazakhstan for new infrastructure, in the sector of new infrastructures. If you want to increase tourism, you need infrastructures at proper level. You need the possibility, the European tourism is different from some other tourists, that they don't want to go to a place and stay the entire week inside an hotel. However beautiful the hotel is, they want to discover. If they come here, they want to discover. And the perception of the vacation, of the travel, is also connected to the level of infrastructure that you can rely on.
And by infrastructure, you mean roads,
I mean hotels.
Hotels?
I mean airports. I mean hotels. I mean services. Hospitals, because many tourists are scared. I mean, if I go there, is there any chance? I mean, if I get my leg broken, to be assisted, or whatever. Infrastructure for different options. Helicopters. Can I take an helicopter from Almaty to the canyon? Is it possible today? Because there are many people. If you bring affluent people, probably they want me to visit I'm just making an example, but I want to go by helicopter to the canyon. Spending just half an hour traveling and 5 hours at the canyon instead of spending 3 hours in the car and 2 hours in the canyon. So it's just an example. I mean, it's the infrastructure of the canyon is still limited. Now there is an infrastructure recently inaugurated. Or if you want to go to the lakes, I would have spent an entire day at the lakes, but there's not much infrastructure to stay there, or and services.
There is a chance to organize this helicopter tour, but it's not on a regular basis. It's just on call, so-called base, demand base. But this would be quite expensive, to be honest, because I know we've explored this option, and many of the helicopters and smaller aircraft, they're better off serving agriculture, they're serving emergency agency and so on. But we're looking into this opportunity. It is quite pricey now, but this brings probably another point. How, in terms of price, competitiveness, in terms of price accessibility, where do you think we stand? Is that still kind of affordable?
It depends, because I mean, I'm not an expert in the tourism industry, but if people who come to Kazakhstan, they know they want to have something special, because it's something special, So it depends on the target that you have. But there are some people who are not worried to spend money when they are on vacation. That target of people is important, equally important than, other targets. So at the moment, my perception is that Kazakhstan is able to offer middle range services and opportunities for tourists. But if you want something more, it's difficult to find. You can get it, but it's quite difficult,
Speaking of luxury segment.
For example.
Okay.
For example. Or you have to go to a specific hotel, to a specific...
I would agree, yes. We're more still targeting kind of mid-range in income, so
which makes sense. Class. Which makes sense, of course, to create a massive, inbound tourism flux, But then there is an untapped potential also in different targets of tourism. And that's important, particularly if you target the European tourists. They want this. They come here with great expectations, and Kazakhstan has a challenge. You can go every year to the Maldives or whatever, to the beautiful beach, because it's cold here, or because in Europe it's cold. But you need to give people the chance and the opportunity and the attraction to come back to Kazakhstan. So one thing is a first-time tourism, but even more challenging. But the potential is creating a returning tourist. They need to get affection. They need to get involved with Kazakhstan. You need to leave them the perception that they didn't visit Kazakhstan, all Kazakhstan. That Kazakhstan can offer much more than they have visited and they have experienced the first time they came here.
And given the size of the country, it's physically impossible to visit it. The entire country, explore the entire country with one visit.
Yes, exactly. They need
but you
to
have to
back.
market it again.
Yes, but they come to back. No, yes, but when the tourist gets involved with the country, the level of investment in marketing is lower, because he knows the country, he felt well. If he wants to come back. So the idea to create a return in tourism is extremely fascinating, extremely, challenging as well. But Kazakhstan needs to tend to this potential. needs to exploit this potential. Because otherwise, I mean, you say, oh yeah, visit Kazakhstan, and they spend 3 days in Almaty, or 3 days in Aktobe, or 3 days in Akdao, and they say they visit Kazakhstan, and the following year they will visit Mongolia or Indonesia or some other countries. But how many tourists come back for the second time to this country? That's very important.
It's really important. That's the sign, the indication of how successful you are as a destination, if they keep returning or not. But in order to have people come back, to see them return, I think one of the important factors is food, the local cuisine. And again, back to our first meeting, sitting at the Kazakh restaurant, what's your perception of the local food? I mean, can it entice foreigners, Europeans? Is it something that they expect to get here?
Yes, absolutely yes. I think so. They search. The experience we have at the embassy is that everyone who comes here wants to experience, the food. Because they perceive that the food is a result of contamination of different cultures. And they perceive that, particularly Italian tourists, they perceive that cuisine is a way to get involved with the local culture. And absolutely, I think that restaurants, the Kazakh restaurants, are growing in Kazakhstan in number and in quality.
It's good to hear this. Yes, one of the restaurants in Almaty, actually, in fact, was included in the top 52 places to visit by New York Times.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. In the beginning of this year. And we keep seeing different awards Kazakhstan is getting, especially when it comes to so-called neo-nomadic cuisine.
Yeah.
And Kazakh Gourmet received some certain accolade in the 50 best.
Yeah.
But do you think, and it's not authentic, to be honest.
Let me say something. I would like to experience a fantastic Kazakh restaurant in Milan, because that restaurant could be ambassador of Kazakh cuisine in Italy and a sort of marketing for Kazakhstan in my country. Because when the tourist comes here, it's just one shot, But the restaurant in Italy would be a permanent spot for promoting Kazakhstan in Italy.
Another embassy in besides Rome,
yeah,
to represent through food. I think that's a great idea. We should start thinking about this.
No, it's fantastic. We are celebrating in November. We are celebrating the Italian Cuisine Week in the world, and in Kazakhstan is fascinating to see the links between the two culinary cultures. And you ask me about the impression of the tourist regarding cuisine. I say, look, they tell me that they perceive that there is good ingredients, there is creativity. It's not superficial. There is the inside the Kazakh cuisine there is a mix of different ingredients, and there is the Dastarkhan. Cuisine without Dastarkhan is feeding.
Right.
So cuisine in our culture is food plus Dastarkhan plus table. Table is a place, where you can meet people, and we are around a table which is round. What struck me that the Dastarkhan is always round table, because everyone has the same position around the table, has the same possibility to talk to one another, to the others, and this idea of circularity is very common in Kazakhstan and means something. And when you tell the tourists around the table, around the Dastarkhan, that they are experiencing the concept of circularity as perfection, as the image of God, that the yurt is circular, that the window is circular.
Exactly.
Yeah, that there are no... circularity means that nothing is finite. There is an idea of infinity, and there is an idea of equality, and there is an idea of sharing. That's part of the cuisine culture.
Right.
I've spent a lot of time in different countries. There are some who invite you to drink. There are some who invite you to eat together. This country, these people Kazakh people invite you to share food because food is feeding. It's the best way to share. So the quality of food depends also on the idea of sharing food with the people you like and you love.
We have a saying in Kazakh that translates, if someone is throwing stone at you, throw food at him.
It's good.
And I think that goes down to diplomacy, again, food diplomacy, so to say. What would be your favorite dish
in Kazakhstan?
Kazakh cuisine.
I love baursak.
Baursak.
It's delicate for me because when there is baursak, I can eat, without stopping. It's addictive. It's addictive for me. And baursak is
also round, by the way.
Yes,
round shape. Yes, circular.
That's interesting. I mean, to have some friends and people who, including you. I mean, you told me many things. You told me many things about the way to read between lines. The way to understand what happens in Kazakhstan. This is a country where the symbol has a very key importance in people's life. So if you want, and the tourist need to be aware that something happening around him or her is linked to a symbology. You come to Astana and you have the baursak. The baursak is a complex of symbols,
Correct.
It's good, yes, nice building, but what does it mean? And the idea of grasping the meaning of what you see and what you experience is something which satisfies you and rewards you.
Also round shapes, yes. I keep bringing this, and I like this point about infinity and the circular kind of shapes that are appearing here and there in Kazakh culture. But this brings me to a thought of circular economy at the same time. And I know you're a big proponent of sustainability and innovation. Do you think that catching up with innovation and sustainability, would that help us market better to European market, which is a little bit more conscious, honestly speaking, about the climate change and about the global pressing issues?
No.
Shall we include this in our marketing initiatives?
Yeah. First of all, let me say that there's no sustainability without innovation. It's impossible to be sustainable today without being innovative. Because of the features of our global society, because of the speed of change, you cannot be sustainable if you are not innovative.
Right.
And sustainability is the goal, but innovation is the way to get there. And the best way to promote sustainability is to promote innovation. So this is the first, step. The second step is that, yes, I think it's possible. But I think it's possible under two circumstances, two conditions. One, a strong partnership between public and private sector. Because innovation is, in any country, innovation is 80% concentrated in the private sector for a number of reasons. So if you want to innovate, you need the private sector as a partner. But the private sector need the framework to operate and to innovate. And the framework is designed by the public sector. So both are necessary. And the quality of the partnership, public-private partnership, is a key prerequisite, to be sustainable. And the second point is that it's impossible to innovate if you are scared. Fear to do something is the worst enemy of innovation. Nobody can innovate if he is, scared of making mistakes. So this partnership, public and private, need to be the platform to enable people to do something, but also to allow people to make mistakes. Because
just like any startup, they go through mistakes, and I totally agree. But the government should be helping and sort of being helping businesses bounce back if they fail at a certain point, I guess. especially when it comes
the
to
right of
renewable
failing.
energies.
The right of failing is, I remember when I was in the US, in New York, we met a very important businessman. He was a venture capitalist, and he told us that when he had to hire people, he had the look at the CV, and in case there was no mistakes or no failure, he was not interested.
Okay.
So he wanted to see and wanted to test people on the capacity of improving through mistakes, not being judged by mistakes. That's extremely important, because otherwise, Kazakhstan has a lot of people who are talented and who are extremely creative, but probably there's a sort of culture to be, the culture of innovation requires this encouragement to make whatever you want, or to make or to take action and to take initiative, without the concern of being judged.
Punished or
yes,
judged. Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
Socially punished, not necessarily legally punished, but socially,
Yes, I think that, again, back to the point of our roots and traditions. Yes, we had this kind of not punishing again, but social judgmental kind of approach in upbringing people while you're a kid, and that's part of the culture, I think.
Exactly.
And there are many jokes about this in nowadays in Kazakhstan, and I think I'm glad we realized this, and I think the generations that is coming up now, and they're different.
They're different, of course, but in general, I think that Kazakhstan is doing. Yeah, I have the privilege of being in this country during a transformation time. We have the privilege, Kairat, you, me. All of us have the privilege to live in a transformative era, in a transformative time.
Right.
What happened 10 years ago, if you look back, 10 years, and what happened over the last 10 years is incredible. And I have the privilege, we have the privilege, Kazakh people have the privilege to live in a transformative country. I don't know how long does it take, to get to the point, how long, these new reforms approved by President Tokayev will be completely executed. But the road is that one, So now it's time. Sustainability is one of the decarbonization is one of the clearest targets that Kazakhstan has fixed, ambitious and clearest. And that target can be reached out not only if one more plant is built or some more wind plants are, built, but if people believe and if people contribute to the process and to the project of decarbonization. So I was at the university, in one university some couple of weeks ago, and they were, young people are very, focused on this idea of sustainability. We have to, government should, but I asked them if they were available to keep their smartphone off for 2 days a week in order to contribute, to reduce the level of energy that they were consuming. And nobody raised the hand. So
exactly, yes. And,
it's easy, to say we have to do, but they have to take action. No, we have to take action, because it's not hope which generates action. It's action which generates hope. So that's the point. In order to get to the point.
Very well put, yes. And we have to ask people to do as we do, not as we say. Yes, we have to act. That's absolutely true. And I like the point that the future is now. You said everything is moving so fast. 10 years ago, who would have thought that we would have new roads and new dry ports or new airlines or open skies regime or even visa-free to most of the world. 80 plus countries now are enjoying the visa-free entrance to Kazakhstan. But 10 years ago, I remember the things just started probably to come out live and loud about One Belt, One Road initiative, about this Trans-Caspian transportation corridor. But 10 years down the road, we see goods are moving. Almost 3 million tons of goods moved from China towards Europe in 2023. It was a tremendous increase from 2022, 65%. And we have open skies regime, which offers fifth freedom in all of the 14 international airports in Kazakhstan. And I think Neos is now serving Milan, Almaty, soon Astana, maybe then they will go from Kazakhstan elsewhere, connecting third destination. So things are moving unprecedentedly fast, and we have to be able to keep
digitalization
up
itself
the pace.
is growing in Kazakhstan.
And digital agenda is huge, and I'm glad this is high on the agenda in Kazakhstan, and President Tokayev is paying such a huge attention to this, ordering to increase and actually double the exports of digital services.
You have 50%, approximately 50% of the population who are younger than 24 years old. So those people have a different mentality, and the current leadership in Kazakhstan has perfectly understood that the speed of change today is exponential. And it is even more exponential when you have 50% of the population who's younger than 24.
That's right.
So the idea of it's challenging, because managing exponential speed is challenging. It's like driving a car at 200 kilometers per hour. It's not the same that driving a car at 40 kilometers per hour. So now if you manage a country today, you have to be able to manage a car at a very high speed and being ready to anticipate what happens. Because probably that speed is too high in order to manage the circumstances when you realize that something is happening. You need to anticipate what's going to happen. And that's again, why creativity in any industry is particularly relevant. Because creativity means that you look ahead, you foresee something, and you prepare yourself, your company, your country, to the exponential change that is coming.
Creativity embraces so many spheres, as you said, from arts to innovation. Would you say tourism is also part of creative industries?
By excellence. It's one of the industries where you can express the highest level of creativity, because you have to create an experience more than setting up an agenda for the traveler. And the traveler, the tourist, perceive if you are taking care of that particular moment, because it's the first or the most important week in his or her life, in his or her year. And they perceive if you are creating something special. Anyone in the world, everyone wants to feel special. And tourism, when you are on vacation, it's like when you get married. It's a special moment. So creativity in tourism means it's a tool to make people feel special. And you cannot offer the same to everyone. You need to be able to customize, and you need to be able to create some differences between the different packages according to the different targets.
That's a great point. I will have to quote you on this. Yes, traveling, vacation is like a wedding. Exactly. Yeah, you have to prepare. You're spending so much time, probably more than on your wedding preparations.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. You are ready. You want to have a beautiful experience. You are ready to spend money. You are excited about that, but you also want something in return, which is the speciality of the moment. I think that when you go on vacation, everything should be unforgettable. Including details needs to be unforgettable, because you it's something that you have to keep in your heart, like marriage.
Yes, but how do you market this to Europeans nowadays? I mean, so many countries, especially in the region, we share pretty much the same product: Mongolia, Kazakhstan. Comparing Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, we complement each other. We found a way how to work with Central Asian states together, how we complement each other, Kazakhstan more of adventure and modernity. Uzbekistan is more culture heritage.
Yeah.
Kyrgyzstan is about authenticity. But do you think we should market it as a whole, as a region? Or shall we stand out and probably go one by one first to kind of get people used to this region and then only start combining? Or the idea of TravelStan should work from the very beginning?
No, you mentioned alliances, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, or Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. The region as itself, it's really complicated, to be marketed, because it's huge, because it's so diverse, and because the services and the interconnections are not easy. If you want to travel from Astana to Dushanbe, it's something that you have to plan in advance.
Right.
Or I cover Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. It's a couple of hours of real flight, but you have to make a stopover in Almaty. When you come back from in wintertime, when you come back from Bishkek, the only flight to Almaty is 7-8 o'clock. So you don't have many connections by night. So sometimes you have to spend the night in Almaty.
Have you tried to drive actually to Bishkek?
Let me tell you that I drove, but I also went from Almaty to Bishkek biking. 17 hours.
Wow.
In 2023 with a couple of friends. Yeah.
Is that something we have to market as well as a?
I don't know, because
or it's a bit
tough.
premature.
I would market some biking in the mountains of Almaty, but that's a very long trip.
But what was the hardship of? Is it crossing the border?
No, it's long. It's long in terms of kilometers. Mm-hmm. And the road is not always the best one. To bike. But we wanted to do it. The idea of crossing the Tian Shan Mountains by biking was fascinating. Wow. And we made a lot of stops, to contemplate nature, mountains, and, to breathe. So it took us quite long, but it was a great experience. We came back by flight, actually.
Amazing.
It was one way.
I can imagine,
one way trip.
I can imagine you venturing on a bike trip back to Almaty. Mark, I know you're writing a book about Kazakhstan. Would that be this adventure part of your book?
The book is 10 words, Kazakhstan in 10 words. The idea was asking some friends a word which, according to their opinion, represent their country. And then I wanted to have an experience, a real experience, connected to that word. And then writing my experience. That was the scheme of the book. It's a very small book. 50, 60 pages, mm-hmm. 10 words. And the idea, yes, is not a traveling guide. It's a way to look at Kazakhstan in a different way from inside. The subtitle could be Kazakhstan from inside.
Which sort of reader do you think this is addressed to the first time kind of explorer of Kazakhstan, or to someone who, or both?
Both.
Okay.
Yes, I think both. And it's not a book conceived to be a bestseller. It's a book to conceive to leave my friends and the people I met, and sort of a memory of my experience in their country, and also I would like to publish in at least 2 languages, Italian and Kazakh, or Italian and Russian, and we will see. And something to leave to the people who will come after me, because I think that if you have a great experience, you need to tell it. The telling is something that helps humanity to improve. So if I can't improve something, I need to be able to describe and to leave something to the other ones for them to take advantage of this experience and improve the things that we have done here.
I'm looking forward to reading this book, and you're a great storyteller.
Thanks.
And I always compliment the way how you entice listeners or spectators with your speech. And I'm ready to quote every second of what you've told about us
My
today.
idea is having a book which is readable on board, flying from Astana to Almaty.
Amazing. Yes,
because I wrote that book on board. So the idea was not a big book, just 50 pages, and readable in 1.5 hours, which is the duration of the flight.
The duration of the flight.
That's
yes.
because I wrote that book flying Astana, Almaty, Astana, Aktobe, Astana, Aktau, and I wanted to have a book readable in that time.
Amazing. Yes, well, one of the future speakers here at this podcast will be Mr. Peter Foster, and I think we have to sell this idea to him.
I'm a frequent client.
Excellent. On this note, Marco, Your Excellency, thank you so much for being the first guest at this travel talks. I think we will bring this project over to 2025, invite your colleagues from other countries to come and share their ideas, their view of Kazakhstan, how their experience was. Is it sellable to their countrymen? How should we sell this? And I think today's podcast was so insightful. I've literally run out of pages in my mind while trying to virtually note everything that you said. So thank you so much.
Sayakhat bastalady.
Yes. Bastalady. Thank you, Rahmet.